35 times on the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot at Mets.com. Voting is exclusively online and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. Vote at Mets.com now. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New York Mets. By State Farm. Today's State Farm agent of the game is Pat Cauley of Glendale, New York. Contact Pat at PatCauley.com. And by Cadillac. Get to Citi Field Friday, May 15th when the Mets take on the Brewers at 7:10. All fans in attendance will receive a Mets t-shirt courtesy of McDonald's. For tickets, visit Mets.com/free shirt Fridays. Tonight's game changer brought to you by T-Mobile. Most wins in the major leagues. Couple of Mets on the list. Harvey tries to become the first with number 6 tonight. It's Harvey and the Mets against Hamels and the Phillies. Mets' first visit to Philly this year. Fanatics ready. Are you? First pitch coming up. A mascot with no shame. Here's your Mets starting lineup tonight, brought to you by Geico. Lefty on the mound, so that means a start for John Mayberry, the former Philly. And on this night, it also means Lucas Duda, who's hitting .393 against lefties, gets a seat on the bench. Michael Kadire plays first base. Curtis Granderson stays in the lineup. So does Daniel Murphy, the only two lefties in the lineup tonight against Cole Hamels.
It gives Dudas those 2 days off with the day off yesterday. Hamels, I said before in the open, 32 starts now. When he starts tonight, that's tied with Tim Hudson of the San Francisco Giants. I said his career record's 8-14 against the Mets. He's pitched better of late, but this season has been a slog so far. Why? I'll tell you in those Toyota numbers. The number that's not up there is 8 home runs he's given up, including 4 on opening day. Defensively for your Philadelphia Phillies behind Hamels, Coors Light, Darren Ruff, not much of a defensive player. Good bat. Herrera's been better than they thought. Freddie Galvis has been really good at shortstop. Chase Utley, we talked about him in the open. And Ryan Howard's got some home runs. That's just about it. And Carlos Ruiz, despite his well, he's been a great defensive player for a long time, but he hasn't thrown out any base stealers the last couple of years. The 194th time that he and Hamels have been battery mates.
That's the most among any active pitcher and catcher. Not as many as the combo of Tom Seaver and Jerry Grody back in the day. They hooked up 237 times as battery mates, which is the all-time Mets record.
Most catchers had, I told you, led the league in walks in '85. Most catchers had about up or down about 25, and then they were done with me. They wanted to move on.
I think that's hardly the case. Curtis Granderson will lead things off for New York. One thing to keep an eye on here, Granderson's been drawing a lot of walks, and Hamels uncharacteristically has been issuing a lot of walks. His walk rate so far this year double his career rate. First pitch of the night to Granderson is a fastball for a strike, and we're underway. Granderson at .239 with a .360 on base percentage, 18 walks, up among the league leaders. And it's so fascinating watching the way teams shift or don't shift against Curtis Granderson. The Phillies do not.
They all have the same numbers, and different teams use them in different ways.
Hamels ahead 0-2, and Granderson just got a piece to stay alive.
You know what has happened to Hamels early, Gary, and I've seen it happen to many pitchers. He knows he's pitching for a team that's struggling, not going to be a good team. He's trying to be perfect, so that's resulting in the walks. He's getting behind, that's resulting in the home runs.
And both his walk rate and home run rate are double his career averages. His walk rate for his career 2.3, this year 4.6. His home run rate 1.0 per 9 innings, this year 1.9. So, you know, doubling your career numbers is sometimes a good thing. In this case, not a good thing at all.
Well, he spent all winter being told that he was, or not told, reading that he was going to be sent somewhere else, and still in the Phillies uniform.
And he strikes out Granderson with a changeup for the first out of the night.
Well, that's a good out for Hamels, because his changeup has been a pitch that he has lost in his first 6 starts. So to be able to come out with it and get a strikeout right away bodes well for Hamels.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Juan Lagares, who's cooled off the last couple of days, 0 for his last 9, but he's got great career numbers against Hamels. 11 for 25. That's a .440 average, and he takes a strike. Lagares hitting an even .300 for the year.
That's the best thing that happened to Hamels tonight. He's facing Matt Harvey.
Second time they've hooked up. First time was back in 2012, and no decision for both of them. Well, you mentioned Hamels, who was told all winter he was going to get traded. Mets have a pitcher like that in Dylan G, and there was news about G today that affects the Mets rotation in a significant fashion. G has a slight groin problem, and he's going to go on the disabled list. And as a consequence, Noah Syndergaard is going to be called up and make his first big league start Tuesday night at Wrigley Field. Lagares hits a bolt to left, but right at Darren Ruff for the second out.
So if Dylan's going immediately to the DL, does that mean to you that they'll call Syndergaard straight up?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, because they'll want to see him throw on the side, won't they?
Right. They'll want him to be in the clubhouse for a couple of days, so he'll join the team tomorrow. Now, all the other stars, we're going to get an extra day of rest, but all they have to do now is move Cologne to Sunday, so he'll be on regular rest. DeGrom to Monday in Chicago, he'll be on regular rest, and then Syndergaard slots in on Tuesday. So there'll certainly be a lot of attention focus there. John Mayberry playing against his old team takes a call strike. Mayberry getting his 6th start tonight, all against lefties.
Batting in that 3rd slot, because that's what Mr. Collins loves to do. If he takes Duda out, he bats Mayberry right in that position.
Hamels coming out strong, throwing 93 with that fastball. And Harvey pacing, ready to spring. like a caged tiger.
I know. I was trying to explain it in the open. I guess I did a bad job, but I was just thinking that watching him walk around the clubhouse today, it looked like at some point, if you didn't know him well, he might just sock you in the face. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of the look he gives.
Mayberry hits a 2-hopper to Ashe. And the long throw handled by Howard. And Mayberry retired, and Hamels has himself a 1-2-3 opening inning. Matt Harvey sprung from the cage when we come back. A right fielder has been the everyday leadoff hitter since they tried out Odubel Herrera earlier in the season. Phillies dead last in the National League in runs scored, 2.8 runs per game, as they try and get something going against Matt Harvey tonight.
Well, Matt's last start against Washington, 7 shutout innings. That's 5 times he's done that, including his only complete game shutout against the Colorado Rockies in 13.
Ben Revere leads things off. Phillies just finished a 10-game road trip. Revere hit .366 on that trip. After a slow start to his season, he's got it rolling now, hitting a .264. And Harvey's first pitch of the night is in for a strike. Freddie Galvis on deck, and then Chase Utley against Harvey, who's 5-0 with a 2.41 ERA. Only 3 pitchers in Mets history have won their first 6 starts in a season. Most recently, Frank Viola in 1990, when he won his first 7 en route to a 20-win season.
120 on the last day of the season.
And he was the last Met to win 20 before R.A. Dickey did it.
The only 20-game winner, guy to go for his 20th game with bubble gum on his hat to start the game in Pittsburgh. Frank, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about.
Saying that a teammate might have pranked him?
Yes, he was the prank person.
He was prankable?
Yes.
Revere drives one out to left center, but Lagares sees us over, and Mayberry tries to get out of his way. He saw Kadire the other night. Kadire said, Lagares is calling balls that are hit right at me. Well, why wouldn't he? He can beat Kelly Lee.
Well, I think what Lagares is really the statement he's making, guys, to all these outfielders is, I know you all can catch it, but I'm catching everything I can. So just you know, the ball to your right if you're Mayberry, Granderson the ball to your left. You guys have those. All the rest I got.
Well, you know, I remember back in the days when Andrew Jones was in his heyday in Atlanta, and what the Braves would do is they would play their corner outfielders closer to the line, understanding that Andrew had both gaps covered. Here's Freddie Galvis taking a strike. And maybe at some point the Mets will tend to do the same thing with Lagares. Take away the lines and let him cover everything else. Galvis has gotten off to a terrific start. He's hitting .330, 10th in the National League. And with Jimmy Rollins struggling in Los Angeles, that transition from a Phillies standpoint going very well.
Rollins has hit some home runs. He's hit some dramatic home runs with the Dodgers, but has not been able to put up enough hits. So he and Utley both struggling, just in different uniforms.
0-2 to Galvis, and he pulls one through the hole, a base hit. Turned on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball up, and he's the first base runner for either side.
Well, switch hitter, but very few hitters from the left side are able to pull that ball up in the strike zone. Remember when Matt had to face Bryce Harper with the Nationals, who just recently hit 3 home runs. He swung through that pitch over and over again.
So now Utley, who sat out the last 2 games of the Phillies road trip, trying to give him a chance to catch his breath. He's 0 for his last 15, and since the last time the Phillies faced Matt Harvey and Utley had a big night, he's 4 for his last 62. And he pops the first pitch fastball up, and that'll go out of play. In that game against Harvey, Utley went deep twice, one of them against Matt.
A little breaking ball there that Utley hooked into the corner. You know, when you're sat and you're a starting player for 2 consecutive days, Mets did it with Wilmer Flores, it's the equivalent of being put on a psychiatrist's couch. It really is. Just sit back, relax, think about it a little bit, and come back ready for bear.
But isn't it one thing to do it with a young player like Wilmer Flores, who's still developing, and a whole different thing to do it with a player of the pedigree of Chase Utley? He lifts this one to center. Lagar started back, now racing in, and gets there for the second out.
This is one of those ballparks, folks, this time at night between 7 and 8 o'clock, as we get deeper into the summer, or spring to the summer. That's hard to see.
Just a little bit of sunshine, as you can see, on that outfield playing surface. They've not drawn well here at Citizens Bank Park, but a good crowd tonight with a lot of Met fans on hand. Mets will shift against Ryan Howard, who has swung the bat well the last few days. 6 for his last 12, including a home run. Has 5 home runs for the year.
Even when Murph plays third, he plays usually where he's playing out there in right field.
He's got the rover position against Howard. He's 1 for 10 in his career against Harvey, and fouls off the first pitch fastball. And the Phillies have come out attacking tonight against Matt.
Well, Matt is seeing that, and he might make an adjustment the second time through this lineup. But as a pitcher, when you throw like Matt throws, you try to rush your way through the first time through that lineup, using a lot of fastballs.
Galvis is on the move. Plawecki's throw, not in time. And Galvis has his first stolen base of the year.
Well, this base was stolen on Matt Harvey. He didn't pay enough attention to Galvis. He got a big lead and a big jump. But one thing you have noticed, right? The last couple of series, they are testing the kid. They're testing Plawecki.
So now Flores has to move a little closer to third base with a runner at second.
He's got to move closer than that. He's not going to beat Galvis there. Galvis is about twice as fast as Flores.
1-1 to Howard, and a good changeup by Harvey to get ahead 1-2.
Great movement on this changeup. Down. Good position. Well, if you ran Galvis here, that means Flores is moving. Means the whole left side of the infield is open.
Would you be tempted to just let him go?
I'd let him go.
And he's going, and Howard hits one into the shift. Murphy with the dive can't make the play, and Galvis will score all the way from second base, and the Phillies have a 1-0 lead. So Galvis took off with Howard behind in the count, and on what amounts to an infield hit, Galvis able to score from second with the first run of the game.
Well, that's 2 hits on 2 fastballs. Trying to go upstairs was Matt Harvey, and pulled to Daniel Murphy, who couldn't come up with the play. Good try by Murph, but so deep. I don't know if he caught that, if he was going to have a chance to get it. Galvis leaving. Flores was not going to cover third. He was just inching over there.
So a run is in. Now Darren Ruff goes after the fastball and fouls it off his leg. Ruff playing left field tonight, his 14th start of the season.
Did I get that wrong, Gary? Was that a changeup to Howard or a fastball? I'm not sure.
Not sure either. So an uneven start for Harvey, who gave up 3 runs in 6 innings against the Phillies the first time he faced them this year. But he's never lost to Philadelphia. He's 5-0 lifetime in 6 starts with a 1.6 ERA against the Phils.
Hanging breaking ball right there. Fortunate to have that one back.
Now Harvey worked on his slider in that last start against Washington. It was an effective pitch for him.
It was
not there.
Yeah, it was. But that, like I said, lucky to get back. Coming into this game in 39 1/3 innings, Harvey's walked 8, struck out 46.
0-2 coming. And the curveball is down, 1-2. Harvey for this season, 4 walks, 34 strikeouts, and it's not even the best strikeout to walk ratio on his own staff. Bartolo Colon, of course, has only walked 1. Broken back grounder, and Flores makes the flip for the 3rd out. But the Phillies play to run and lead 1-0 after 1. Michael Kadire leads off the 2nd inning against Cole Hamels, who's been fortified with a 1-0 lead. Kadire, over his last 15 games, just 8 for 52, his average of .237 for the year. And he has struggled against Hamels as well, just 1 for 15 against Cole Hamels, which to me made it a little surprising that Duda sat tonight and that Kadire is in the lineup.
I mean, my personal opinion, but
Dyer hits one out to center, and Herrera makes sure that he can see it.
The last time I said this was about Marlon Byrd getting him some rest, and he had the best offensive season any Mets. My issue with Kadire is he's 36 years old, so every chance you get to give him 2 days off, I think is welcomed and great. That's the reason I thought Lucas should be in the lineup. But righty lefty, they love those things.
Here's Daniel Murphy, who's had good numbers against Hamels, who moves him back off the plate. Murphy playing 3rd base these days, and it looks like it'll be a significant while longer. David Wright had been making progress coming back from his hamstring injury, was supposed to be starting to play in games tomorrow, but and Murphy gets drilled. So Hamels came inside the first pitch and then drills him with the second. And you wonder whether this goes back to Harvey hitting Utley the last time these two teams faced.
Yeah, this was an obvious, and he'll say it was not. But the first pitch, he tried to hit him in the kneecap, he missed, and the second one right in the right thigh. So obviously just going right after Murph and got him. So the only issue you have when you're a pitcher like Hamels, that's nice, I guess, that you made up for Utley being hit. But Mr. Harvey's going to respond at some point, too. He's got his eyeballs on this show.
Well, Murph, I'm sure, understood as soon as Hamels came inside with the first pitch that Cole was gunning for him. And you can see he's talking to Ryan Howard down at first base about it. Driven to center by Flores, chasing Herrera back, and he gets there to make the catch. Flores hit a bolt, and Murphy retreats to first, 2 out. And this was back on April 14th.
I mean, Harvey hit Utley right between the numbers, stared him down to first base. Utley kind of sprinted down there. You have to remember, Utley's a guy who gets hit 20 plus times a season.
Yeah, you don't have to go behind him to hit him.
No.
Of course, 2 Mets were hit earlier in that game, including Travis d'Arnaud, who had his hand broken. Here's Kevin Plawecki. That's hit some balls hard early in this game against Hamels, but yet to pick up their first hit. Well, anyway, I didn't finish the story on David Wright.
Okay.
David developed some back problems. They gave him an MRI yesterday, which showed no structural damage, but it's obviously going to delay his return. And at this point, rather than him starting to play in games tomorrow and maybe coming back sometime next week, it's going to be significantly longer than that.
Not good news. I was thinking that a lot of bad news comes from us up here, but we just bring it as it comes, guys. Sorry.
Flash. Here's a bullet.
That's right.
Yeah, just like that. With the press card and the hat and the whole thing.
The one thing I want to reiterate here, though, the Mets are a better team. It goes all around baseball that they're a better team. They've got a good pitching staff. Other teams are going to test them in this way, and it's going to see how unified they are when a pitcher goes after one of their players. It's going to happen a lot more than when you're a bad team and no one really cares.
Well, let me ask you this. So 2 Mets got drilled in that game. Harvey retaliated. Hamels retaliates here. Harvey retaliates. At what point does that end? Or does it just keep going?
I would say that Harvey would not retaliate unless he had 2 outs. Revere's the first hitter. He had 2 outs, and Hamels is up. He might not hit him because Hamels should be an out, but he might buzz one under his chin.
Hamels strikes out Plawecki with a changeup, his second strikeout. Middle of the second, Harvey heads back to the mound. 1-0 Phillies. some sausage, got some chicken there.
Barbecue chicken. How about some kielbasa? Is that kielbasa or not worst?
Can't tell. That's not Bull's place, is it?
No.
Greg Luzinski's got the barbecue place.
Kielbasa, now, if you barbecue it, you slice it very thin. You put it on pumpernickel bread with some mustard. Bingo.
Sounds heavenly. Odubel Herrera fouls off the first pitch of the home second inning. Herrera's been playing center field every day for the Phils this year. 23-year-old Rule 5 pick from Texas, who had been a middle infielder for his entire career before the Phillies decided to draft him and then change his position. And he's held his own, hitting .286.
They've been happy with him. They've been happy with his outfield play. Now, remember, he plays extremely deep out there to keep stuff in front of him. But they've been happy. They've been happy with the way he's held his own with his at-bats. Talented young player.
Cody Ashe waiting on deck. Then Carlos Ruiz for the Phillies in the second. Phillies took advantage of speed and shifts to score a run in the first inning.
You think to yourself, why is Herrera? He came from Texas, right? Why would he be a Rule 5 guy with all that talent? They have so many talented young infielders that he was back in the depth chart.
Sometimes guys are victim of a numbers game, and that's really what the Rule 5 draft is all about. And guys who have a certain amount of service time, as Harvey strikes out Herrera, who are not going to get a chance in the organization they're in. It gives them maybe an opportunity with a different organization that's willing to keep them in the big leagues all year.
It stops you from being buried in one organization. Good pitch here by Harvey down against the youngster.
First strikeout of the night for Harvey, who needs 5 tonight to reach 300 strikeouts for his career. Cody Ashe, the batter. Last time the Mets saw Ashe, he was red hot. He is no longer that. He's 0 for his last 17. His average down to 245. I think he was hitting about 500 the last time the Mets encountered him.
Murphy at third base giving him the bunt. I don't like to give the bunt away on the first strike to a hitter in a slump.
Well, if Harvey gets to 300 strikeouts tonight, he needs 4 more. He would be among a handful of pitchers who've gotten there in short order. Nobody faster than Dwight Gooden, who got there in his 35th start. Out to left field, and Mayberry is there waiting. 2 out.
And here's the Mets defense behind Harvey, presented to you by Lexus. John Mayberry Jr. gets the start on the left. Lagares and Granderson on the center and right. Your infield's the same. Murphy, Flores, Herrera. But Kadire gets the start. Lucas Duda sits. And Kevin Plawecki is everyday Plawecki behind the plate.
There was a plan when the year began for Kadire to play more first base because the assumption was that Duda would not. But Duda's hit the lefties so well that this is only the second game Kadire has started at first base. Ruiz takes a strike. Carlos Ruiz, 36 years old, hitting just .232. This is a Phillies team that was allowed to grow old together. Utley 36, Howard 35, Ruiz 36. And the Phillies, who had a great run of 5 straight National League East titles, are starting to pay the price from inaction. Popped up. Lagares right there waiting for it. And Harvey bounces back with a 1-2-3 second inning. After 2, Phil's 1, Mets nothing. A gorgeous day in Philly, as it was in New York today. Temperature got into the low 80s. Dilson Herrera leads off and drives one toward the left field corner. He's got himself an extra base hit. Herrera coming off a 3-for-3 3-RBI night in the Mets' last outing on Wednesday. Drills a double on the first pitch he sees tonight.
Well, just like the home run we saw him hit the other night, a ball in. He's starting to react so quickly. Now, don't forget, the first 2 hits he had in that game were hits up the middle. And now he's starting to look at that ball in and being real quick.
So the Mets have their first hit, and Harvey will go up there and try and bunt Herrera over to third. Harvey 1 for 9 with 1 sacrifice this year.
Got to bunt it to Ryan Howard. He does not like to throw the ball around the infield. Most of the time you bunt it to the third baseman, but Hamels is a really good fielder. Bunt it to Howard.
And the fastball outside. Now, the way we referenced Herrera's 3-for-3 3-RBI night, Dilson became only the second Met player 21 or younger to have a 3-for-3 3-RBI night. The other one,
Strawman?
Darryl Strawberry, 1983. One and one to Matt.
You saw Matt there trying to get that ball to Ashley. I've explained it a couple of times, and the great Bud Harrelson taught me. You point the top of the bat right at the second base position. Not where Utley's going, where he would normally play a position. That gives you the perfect angle to bunt that ball to third base.
Well, he seems to have that angle. The question is what you do after you set up in that spot.
Well, you know, the whole thing for pitchers, and I've been in that position 1,000 times, is that once you get everything where it's supposed to be, breathe, relax, because you're very nervous up there, because, you know, if you don't get it down, you look like a real schmo, you know?
Oh, that went up and in from Hamels, causing Harvey to bunt it foul in reaction.
Locked in that position, couldn't get it back. You really have to turn your left shoulder in, your bat back, and get away from that baseball. He wasn't able to. It's way up in that box, too, trying to keep it fair.
Harvey looking down at Tim Tuffle to see if the bunt's still on with 2 strikes. Herrera at second and nobody out. Mets down by a run in the third. Curtis Granderson on deck. And he's ready to swing. And did he go? He did not. Took the fastball inside. It's 3-2.
I put the bunt back on now because you've got them leery out there that he might swing away. All you have to do is get any kind of bunt down to get Herrera over.
Howard and Ashe even with the bags at first and third. And the bunt foul for strike 3, and Matt angry at himself. That's the 3rd strikeout for Hamels, the first out of the inning.
You know, in these kind of games, you just get so angry at yourself, like you said, Gary, because, you know, all the little things matter so much when you're going against a good pitcher. I don't care what his record is.
Well, the Mets gave up a run on little things like stolen base, the shift, that really helped create the run for the Phillies. Now the Mets trying to find a way to at least get even. Curtis Granderson struck out his first time up. Curtis has struggled against lefties so far this year, just 1 for 15 with that first inning strikeout. And the cutter in for a strike. Well, Hamels last year struggled early in the season and then was brilliant down the stretch. Wound up 6th in the Cy Young balloting despite finishing 9-9. His ERA was 2.46 for the year.
It's interesting. Those wins are not as important as they used to be as far as getting Cy Young Award votes. I think the line of demarcation was Felix Hernandez the year he won it. What is he, 14-13 or 13-12 or something?
13-12. Lincecum also won with, I think, 14 wins. Off the corner to Granderson, a couple of cutters to start him off, and it's 1-1. Now the thing about Hamels, when you look at him this year compared to his career, his whip, his walks and hits per inning pitched, is highest it's been in his entire career. It's at 1.35 right now, which is very much the number of a journeyman pitcher, not an elite pitcher. Granderson pops one up. Should be playable. Ashe and Ruiz. And Ruiz takes charge for the second out.
Well, most catchers in baseball will be called off by the infielder, but not Chooch Ruiz. He's got as sure of hands as any catcher in the game. If he's camped, let him catch it. Two hands. Beautiful. It's remarkable when we see catchers catch with two hands, isn't it? Or anyone catch with two hands.
So here's Lagares, who hit a hard line drive to left that was caught his first time up. He obviously sees Hamels very well. He seems to have great at bats against him every time he faces him. Herrera at second and 2 out. And Hamels starts him off with a cutter for ball 1.
It's cutter he's used a lot this inning. One thing we haven't seen from Hamels yet, that good curveball that he's used a lot early in the season.
You know what? If he has his changeup, he tends not to throw his curveball as much.
I agree with you 100%.
And so far he's had a pretty good changeup. He struck out 3, walked none. And there's that curveball right on cue. 2-0. And I could see Hamels pitching carefully to Lagares here. He's got Mayberry, who he obviously knows well, on deck.
Wouldn't be surprised to see a 2-0 change up here from Hamels. There it is. Pitching 101 in the major leagues.
Could you chart the rest of the inning for us so we know what's going to happen?
Well, you just know these things because you've done them 100 times. Now, though, he's got swinging at that fastball. He might try to pound him inside and try to pop him up. But it would be on the corner or off the plate. Well, it came in. He didn't want it there, though.
Hamels with 3 strikeouts tonight. Now 1,748 for his career. 3rd all-time in Phillies history.
Carlton number 1. Robin Roberts number 2.
That's it. 2-2 to Lagares. And the curveball in there. Strike 3 called. He backdoored him with that curve for his 4th strikeout of the night. And the Mets waste a leadoff double by Herrera. Still 1-0 Phils. On SNY, just go to sny.tv/KidCasters. Submit an essay on the topic provided, and you'll be entered in the SNY KidCaster contest, presented by New York's 529 College Savings Program. We go to the bottom of the 3rd. Some of the Met fans have made their way down the turnpike or on Amtrak. There were a whole bunch of them on their way down today.
Yeah, I was on Amtrak today, and there are tons of Mets fans.
Cole Hamels 3 for 10 at the plate this year. And he hits one past the mound. Flores, though, flashes over and makes the play on Hamels, one away. So 1 out and nobody on. Ben Revere coming up. So because of the 2 off days the Mets had this week, Matt Harvey, instead of pitching with 1 extra day of rest as they've tried to provide him early this season, is pitching with 2 extra days of rest. It was last Friday that he pitched against the Nationals, so it's a full week between starts. What impact might that have on him, and what impact does it have on his preparation tonight?
His preparation gives you an extra couple of days to do your cardio and stuff like that, weight training. But what the big indicator is how you pitched last time out. He threw 7 shutout innings. So instead of throwing twice on the side, which you do if you struggled the time before, as Revere flies out to Mayberry in left field, he decided to wait an extra day and then throw on the side, which I think makes total sense. If you're styling in your last start, then you want to only really throw once in between starts and not really change up and throw too much. Now, the start prior, if you'd given up 4 or 5 earned runs, then you would wait a day, throw on the side, wait a day, and throw on the side again. So you'd get 2 chances to work on some stuff to make sure that you ironed out those difficulties.
So if he only had 1 side session in a full week, how does he manage to stay sharp for the start tonight, since he has so much time between?
What you do is you get yourself on flat ground out with, maybe the bullpen catcher, maybe one of your fellow pitchers who can really squat down and catch properly, and you go through all your pitches on flat ground. Just because a guy doesn't throw on the side doesn't mean that before the game he'll go out on the mound and maybe just play catch by standing on top of the mound and playing catch. So, the formal throwing on the side is different than sometimes working on your pitches in between starts. You throw from flat ground, and you and I play catch, Gary, and I'm throwing you a breaking ball and it's really breaking. Can you imagine what it must look like when you throw on a mound? So you can tell off flat ground. If you're breaking it there, you know it's going to be easy from 60 feet, 6 inches off the hill.
Now, we often talk when a pitcher's had too much rest about rust. Is there a particular pitch that's more prone to rust if you haven't pitched in an extended period of time?
I've always thought fastball command for every pitcher, and especially for Matt, is the one thing that eludes him with all this rest, is that when he is on top of his game, and folks, I've seen glimpses of him, and I know he's 5-0 and his ERA is under 2.5. I've seen glimpses of it, but I have not seen him like just rocket sharp yet.
And there he walks Galvis with 2 outs. His first walk of the night, only his 5th in 36 innings this year. And for the Mets staff, only their 53rd, which is the fewest of any staff in the major leagues.
That was a tough call to take, because I thought that was a strike. If you considered the curveball to Lagares was called a strike, a high strike.
So here's Utley, who flied out to center his first time up. Remember, Galvis stole a base in the first inning, and it led to the first Philadelphia run. It was his first stolen base of the year, and Harvey will probably keep a closer tether on him now. And Utley goes after that low and away fastball, 0-1.
I was going to say Chase looked late on that fastball, but it was 97 miles per hour.
Of course, anytime you get a player of Utley's age, and he's 36, and he goes through an extended slump like this, people start to ask the question, how much does he have left?
Well, I look at it this way. He's a National League player. He's played extremely hard his entire career. That's his numbers from last year. Great RBI totals. He's a guy that'll take you out at second. He'll get hit 25 times a year. A real gamer in every sense of the word. But unlike his counterparts in the American League, there's no DH to hide him behind every once in a while to try to keep him healthy.
Well, he was able to stay healthy last year after having hip and knee problems the last few years. But you're right, there is a lot of wear and tear on that body. So the question is there a rebound in the cards for Utley? And the Phillies certainly hope that there is. There goes Galvis. The pitch inside. Plawecki's throw is not in time. Flores tries to keep a tag on Galvis, but he has his second stolen base of the night.
Well, Galvis is making it look pretty easy. Two things. One, he gets a good jump. Second, he picks a breaking ball to run on, which is real smart baseball intelligence, and he gets in pretty quickly.
Galvis has never been a big base stealer. At 23 one year in the minor leagues in 2011. So the 2 stolen bases tonight double his major league career total. So they've obviously got a pretty good read on Harvey and Plawecki. Harvey makes up for it, though, by striking out Utley with a slider. His second strikeout of the night. After 3, Phillies 1, Mets nothing. Fourth inning, John Mayberry leads off against Cole Hamels. Mayberry grounded out his first time up, and he grounds one straight down. 0-1. Mayberry, Kadire, and Murphy. That's 3, 4, and 5 in the Mets batting order. I'm not sure that's what anybody expected at any point, to be 3, 4, and 5 in the Mets batting order this year. The Mets have done a nice job of overcoming a whole host of setbacks. So many arms in their bullpen have gone down. Their starting catcher, their captain and third baseman, and yet they are 18-10. And now they may turn another injury into opportunity, with Dylan G going on the disabled list with a groin injury, opening the door for Noah Syndergaard.
Well, it was funny. Mike Puma, who tweeted that I wasn't thrilled with the historical perspective of Noah debuting in Wrigley, because I was thinking of my good friend Timmy Leary, who had, in 1982, I believe, when he hurt his arm. I was tongue-in-cheek, trying to be funny. I mean, he's coming off the best game that he's ever pitched in professional baseball, right?
Mayberry strikes out. That's 5 now for Hamels. Well, he had 19 straight scoreless innings before he finally gave up a run yesterday, and he went 3 for 4 with a double and a home run.
Yeah, so he had the Little League game before he came up. Beautiful.
Timing's perfect. The forecast right now is that it's going to be chilly Tuesday night, colder Wednesday night, and Syndergaard will pitch Tuesday night at Wrigley.
Well, I'm excited to see him, and when it's Steven Matz's time to come, I can't wait to see him pitch also. This is the fun part of doing this job, is you see young players develop, they get their shot, they get their time, and you see how they react. Are they ready to go, or are they kind of deer in the headlights still? You don't know.
1-1 to Kadire. Well, those are the numbers on Syndergaard, who has really stepped it up a notch. He had a decent season last year for Vegas, particularly in the second half, but he has really taken it to a different level this year, and it looks like at 22 years of age, his time has come.
Well, I think that the pitching in general down there has done a nice job the past few seasons being in Las Vegas. It's very difficult to pitch there, and their ball club right now stripped of a lot of their players. Campbell was up here for a long time. Plawecki, of course, with Darno injury. They won 14 straight.
14 in a row. Kadire laces one into center for a base hit. Makes his manager look good, leaving him in the lineup against Hamels tonight. Only the second hit he's ever had against Hamels.
Well, he concentrates almost all the time up the middle, Michael Kadire, and that's a bullet to center.
1 out and 1 on. Let's check in with Steve Gelb. Steve?
Gary, I spoke with Frank Viola, the AAA pitching coach, today about Noah Syndergaard, and he said it's like night and day last year to this year with Syndergaard, saying last year when he got into trouble, he relied so heavily on that fastball. This year, he's using that much better to set up his other pitches. He doesn't have any problem throwing a 2-0 changeup, a 2-1 curveball, doing a much better job of trusting his stuff and trusting that it's better than the batter who's coming up to face him. He said that he thinks that Noah Syndergaard took a lot from not being a September call-up last year, said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. He recommitted to taking it to the next level this season, and what Frank Viola told me is he wouldn't be surprised if you had another Jacob deGrom situation on your hands here where he comes up and they just can't take him out of the rotation.
Well, very good, Steve. I will have to say I was, certainly don't have the pedigree of Noah Syndergaard. But when I was in AAA, or that young man, Jacob deGrom, but when I was in AAA in 1982, I had a pretty solid season, ERA and stuff. And when I wasn't called up, I remember being about as angry as I've ever been in professional sports. Because I'm like, if I can't pitch for the 82 Mets, who can I pitch for? I mean, they were awful. But you know what? The powers that be were a lot smarter than I was. And I was not ready as this ball gets past Ruiz. Kadire takes the extra base. The powers that be were much smarter than I was, and I needed another year in AAA before I was ready. Changeup down in the dirt. Kind of a lazy play there by Ruiz. You don't usually see that.
Yeah, we saw that once when they were in New York as well. He's 36.
Yeah.
It changes things. So the Mets have the tying run in scoring position with 1 out. 1 and 2 to Murphy. It's got to be different, though, for Syndergaard this year in that he's coming up to a first-place team. It's got to make a difference, right? Murphy hits one to left center. Herrera slicing over and gets there for the second out.
Yeah, I was lucky because when I came up in September, the Mets were not a good ball club. I knew I was going to get 5 starts in September. They wanted to say, hey, kid, let's see what you look like up here in the big time. And so I knew I was going to have 5 starts. That really makes a difference.
Right. If you're in win now mode, which the Mets are, and they've shown it with a lot of the moves they've made already this season, if you come up and you don't have a good start or two, well, maybe they go to the next guy. And that might not happen if you were coming up to a last place team. Yeah,
you always have to be careful, though, because, last year when deGrom and Montero were brought up, I would say most of us thought that Montero was maybe the lock to stay up because of all of his numbers that he'd had throughout the minor leagues. And he struggled, and deGrom did not. So even the best of young pitchers, you never know until you get on this mound with the extra deck in the outfield, deck in the stadium. You just don't know.
Flores lined out to center his first time, and Hamels stays away from him. Well, it was never truer than with Matt Harvey. I mean, Matt Harvey had a nice minor league career, but he took his game to an entirely different level when he got to the major league. Well,
when I watched you and Keith did the game in Arizona, I'll never forget. And I don't know what he was throwing that night, 98 plus. He was so excited. Watching the game, and I remember a lot of people had told me that he was, kind of pigeonholed to be a 3rd or 4th starter. Maybe if he maxed out, he could be a number 2. And I watched him pitch that night, and I said, are you kidding me? This kid is out of control. I haven't seen stuff like this in a long time. And but you don't know how he's going to react until you saw him pitch in Arizona. And when you saw it, you instantly knew.
Whereas when deGrom came up, I don't think anybody knew what to expect. And he just took the bull by the horns and was as Steve said, so good they couldn't get him out of the rotation.
He did not have a grasp on the Rookie of the Year until he struck out the first 8 Marlins. Until then, it was Billy Hamilton's award. And then he struck out the first 8 Marlins, and it changed everything.
Hamels behind on Flores, 3-1. Plawecki on deck. And Hamels and Ruiz having trouble getting together, and they're going to have a conversation. Well, every organization strives to have what the Mets now are putting into fruition, right? Somebody goes down, and you've got a quality young arm in the minor leagues who's ready, who you can plug in. And if it's not Syndergaard, maybe next time it's Matz, and you know, and on and on. They've got those kinds of depth not only at the AAA level but below as well. So it certainly bodes well for the future success of this franchise. 3-1 coming. And he goes to a 3-1 changeup and misses. And there's the first walk of the night for Hamels. Well, we've been talking about Syndergaard, but Steven Matz has certainly thrown his hat in the ring for a call-up as well. The lefty who missed really 3 years because of injury.
8 walks by Syndergaard is very impressive. But the numbers are Matz too. And what I've heard from folks that have seen him pitch down there, at times he's unhittable.
And we saw that in spring training as well. He was the talk of camp. Here's Plawecki with 2 out and 2 on. He drives one deep down the left field line, headed back toward the pole, and it's foul. Plawecki got a good hold of one. Didn't have home run distance, but almost kept it fair.
Plawecki, to me, and I'm going to have to ask him this in private, and I'm probably not going to be able to share it with you guys, but he's an intelligent player also. And he was just a little quick on that ball. And it tells me that he went up there thinking first pitch fastball after a walk, and I'm going to jump all over it. And he was just a little quick.
It's that one toward the hole. Galvis knocks it down. That'll keep a run from scoring. Scrambling back to third, Kadire, and the Mets have the bases loaded. And that's a good play by Galvis to make sure he kept that ball in the infield.
These are the little things. First, good hitting by Plawecki. Hit that ball right in the nose. A lot of top spin. And you know, Galvis kind of just threw his whole body in front of that ball to keep it in play. But these are the little things that can help you as a pitcher and as a ball club get through an inning sometimes. Kadire going all the way with 2 outs. And luckily, he didn't hurt an ankle as he gets back to third.
So now Dilson Herrera, who has 4 straight hits, will bat with the bases loaded. Herrera saw 1 pitch his first time up and drilled a double to left field. That's down 1-0 in the 4th. And it goes to the backstop. Here comes Kadire to tie the game. So the Mets get a run on Hamels' second wild pitch of the inning.
Well, Hamels has had some wild pitches, some box. It's supposed to be a fastball away. He hangs onto it too long, and the ball ends up about a foot inside. And Ortiz couldn't control it. But I'm sorry, not Ortiz, Ruiz. But the one thing I'm seeing is they're going to walk Herrera now and face Harvey. The one thing I'm seeing, the lateral movement of Ruiz has not been good this inning.
Would you be tempted to score that a pass ball looking at it a second time?
Not when a pitcher doesn't throw to his spot. It's hard for me to question a catcher when you're sitting on the outside corner and you're at the major league level and you're a pitcher and you throw the ball a foot inside. I give it a wild pitch.
So after Galvis made a terrific play to keep the ball in the infield and keep the Mets off the board momentarily, the wild pitch brings in a run. Now Herrera on base for the 5th straight plate appearance, and Matt Harvey gets a chance to give the Mets the lead. Harvey looking for his first RBI of the season. He has 5 in his career. Bats with Flores at third, Plawecki at second, and Herrera at first. Harvey struck out trying to bunt his first time up. And the cutter runs inside for ball 1, and Ruiz couldn't catch that. He might have been crossed up.
You know, 99% of the time, and I've told you this before, it's the pitcher's fault, but occasionally it could be the catcher's fault. And it was interesting. It looked like almost like Hamels was, no, that's not what you called. You called the second sign. So it was a little bit of a testy argument between the two.
194th time that they have started together, and now Hamels getting really exasperated.
Well, that's one thing Hamels can do. He'll show up some of his teammates.
Pulled foul, and that was very interesting because after Hamels got testy, Ruiz put down one finger as though there was no runner at second base. Yeah. Almost we'll give them the sign. It's a pitcher at the plate. I don't care. That was odd.
Well, you better watch out because Harvey loves big moments. Change up here, though. One sign with the guy in second. It's almost like, you know what? If you don't want to listen to me, you don't want to take the signs correctly, here's one sign. You do it yourself. Let's see if he gives one sign again. That's it. Unbelievable.
He doesn't care if Harvey knows.
Such petulance.
And it works for Hamels as he strikes out Harvey and then mutters into his glove. 6 strikeouts for Hamels. The Mets scratch out a run. It's 1-1 as we go to the bottom of the 4th. Catcher and his pitching coach Bob McClure talks to him when he gets in the dugout.
Oh man, McClure's hot. Hamels is hot. I've never seen it before, Gary. We were talking about it in between innings.
Oh. Ryan Howard hits one deep to left center. Back goes Lagares to the track at the wall. It's out of here. Ryan Howard gets the lead right back for the Phillies with his 6th home run of the year. Howard's driven in both runs, and it's 2-1 Philadelphia.
Well, that's now 3 home runs that Harvey's given up against these Phillies. You know, the first time Howard was up, he caught the same fastball and was just a little late. This time he was not. And how many home runs have we seen Ryan Howard hit against the Mets that fall into the Garden?
His 42nd career home run against the Mets. And the Phillies up 2-1. Well, he may not be the hitter he once was, but he is still a big home run threat. Career home run number 340 for Ryan Howard, second on the all-time Phillies list behind the Hall of Fame third baseman Mike Schmidt.
Del Ennis and Chuck Klein, guys that the casual baseball fan wouldn't know. The great Phillies.
Chuck Klein, one of the best hitters in baseball in the 30s. Hall of Famer.
He's included in one of their, all the teams are on their franchise best 4, and he's one that's being included, of course.
Well, the Phillies have such a long history. There's so much in terms of great players, great teams for you to take in to choose just 4. I mean, for a lot of the years, the Phillies were not a good team. They, when they won the World Series in 1980, it was their first World Series victory ever, despite being around for over 100 years.
So Schmidt's on that list. Robin Roberts is on that list. Chuck Klein.
Steve Carlton.
Steve Carlton, of course.
Hugh down to first. Fair ball. Kadire gets to it and then does the turn to find Harvey and get the out. That was not an easy play.
Well, Kadire was playing way off the line, so when you are playing that far off the line and the bag might come into play, but he makes a steady play at first base, looks around, umpire gets out of the way barely, and watch Harvey. A little delay, but he's got long strides. It made that look pretty easy. Ruff doesn't run very well anyway.
Like for Kadire, the hardest part was getting his momentum stopped to make the turn to get enough on the throw.
Plus Teddy Barrett is a big man at first base. It took him a little bit to get out of the way.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Odubel Herrera tries a drag bunt and misses. Herrera struck out his first time up.
Best breaking ball, curveball by Harvey tonight.
Well, Matt threw his slider more in his last start against Washington. His curveball had been more effective earlier in the season.
Well,
and I guess the question is, when you have both, how do you know which one to use, and can you keep them both effective at the same time?
Yeah, it's hard to do it. Usually you go into a game, and if you've got 2 pitches working at their utmost, then you're in good shape. If you can mix in the third one, then you have one of those good games. If you somehow have all 4 working, then you have one of those 9-inning shutout kind of performances. But the curveball, when you let it go, this is the action, and the slider, you pull down on it. So to be able to pull down and turn over and do both effectively over the game, 95% of the guys cannot do it. They cannot do that. But the real special ones, the Seavers, and early in his career, Matt is showing that he has the ability to use both the curve and the slider, and they can be just as effective. There's another. He throws so hard that you get guys starting to guess first pitch like Howard did, and Ashley was guessing first pitch fastball. He got a curve, looked silly.
See, now with Seaver it was different because Seaver had the fastball and the great hard slider, but his curve was slower. It was more of a big hook.
It was the get me over kind of curveball. The difference between Seaver and Matt when he's at his best shows that is, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody, Ashley pulls that foul, who had control of his fastball like Seaver. He could dot it in and out on the hitters, and then when he would get ahead, he had the rider, that fastball that could ride in the strike zone. They say, physics people will say the ball cannot rise, but boy, it sure looked like it did when Seaver threw. Harvey had a lot of praise for Plawecki the first time they worked together, that he didn't shake him off once. So a little more shaking off going on today. Third sign.
2-2 to Ashe, and he fouls back the fastball at 98. That's the hardest pitch Matt's thrown tonight.
One of the things I've been surprised at Plawecki, he's a big man now. Darno's smaller in stature. Watch when he gives the sign. 2 things. One, how still he is behind there, and how low he gets the target. He puts the target below his shin pads.
Ashe goes down on the changeup. Beautifully done by Harvey. Third strikeout of the night for Matt. But Ryan Howard leads off the inning with a home run. His 6th of the year puts the Phillies right back in front 2-1 after 4. Third time around the batting order for Cole Hamels. And Curtis Granderson leads off and takes the cutter off the plate for ball one. Granderson has struck out and fouled out to the catcher 0 for 2. Mets tied it in the top of the fourth. Ryan Howard's home run put the Phillies right back in front in the bottom of the fourth. Granderson, Lagares, and Mayberry in the fifth. And Granderson yanks one foul. Right before the inning began, the battery made Scott together.
This is almost one of those things where, boy, it's all showing that he pointed his finger out like a blister or something, but he was smiling, and that's a good thing because they walked off the field last inning when they worked together, and they did not sit near each other, did not talk to each other. They didn't want anything to do with each other.
Inning that featured 2 wild pitches, and then something that neither one of us has ever seen before, a catcher putting out single signs with a runner at second base because he was so angry at his pitcher.
Yeah, well, what happened was Hamels was showing him up, so that's how Ruiz countered. He said, okay, you're going to show me up? I'm giving one sign, and you just throw the pitch. Since you're so good, then I'm just going to put one sign down, and you take care of it.
By the way, it worked.
It was beautiful, though. I mean, how angry they were at each other.
He struck out Harvey with the bases loaded with that single sign. And, you know, if you're the Mets in that situation, you got a rookie at second base, Plawecki. Is there any way to do anything with that information which is being handed to you?
It's got no street cred, man. It just doesn't have enough time in for anyone to even believe him.
Granderson down on strikes for the second time. That's 7 strikeouts now for Hamels. And that's the first out of the fifth. Well, the other piece of that is you got the pitcher batting. As you look at the strikeout pitch to Granderson.
A little cutter it looked like there, right?
I mean, even if you had a veteran player at second base, you got a pitcher at the plate could even absorb that information if it was sent to him.
No, and yeah, because he's just, you know, trying to make contact. If you had a real hitter, maybe a chance. I remember we didn't find this out till too late. The Cubs, what they would do is that they would look to their right if it was a breaking pitch and to their left if it was a fastball, and we didn't find out till September, and we went in August in '84 and had a chance to, you know, do something in the race, and they obliterated us in 4 games, and every game was the same. We had that fine young pitching. It'd go 4 or 5 innings through their lineup, and the next time through it would not only base hits, I mean, it would rain home runs in Wrigley. It was awful, and I was right in the middle of it.
So all you have to do is make sure that nobody ever got to second base.
Let me just tell you, I heard that Jody Davis song a lot more that week than I'd ever want to hear in my life.
Oh, and 2 to Lagares. And he won't chase the changeup. 1-2. Here's your JetBlue 5th inning recap. Ryan Howard's home run, the difference in the game right now. Matt Harvey, who has struggled more against the Phillies so far this year than he has against anybody else. Hamels had a rough 4th, but gave up just the 1 run. Lagares fights one off.
Hamels is throwing hard tonight. I know it only says 93, but you can see by the reaction of the Met hitters that they're surprised by how fast that ball's getting in on him.
And Lagares drills one down the line. Just foul. Change up that Hamels got up that time, and Lagares just missed an extra base hit.
Again, Gary, that nice swing you said that Lagares always seems to put on a Hamels pitch. That's 6 inches foul.
Well, he hit a bullet to left that was caught his first time up, then was caught looking on a curveball that looked like it was out of the strike zone to end the 3rd. Mets have left 5 runners on base, 3 of the 5 in scoring position. And that curveball bounced foul. Cole Hamels, first round pick by the Phillies out of high school in San Diego in 2002, and they have gotten everything they could have asked for out of this 3-time All-Star. 109 wins. Lagares pops it up. Utley with the angle. and puts it away for the second out.
He had a couple injuries early in his career, one in high school with the elbow, and then one self-inflicted. Didn't he break his hand in anger at one point? But
well, the one in high school was in a non-baseball situation too. So it took him a little bit longer than it might have otherwise, but here he is at age 31 in his 10th season, so it hasn't set him back much. Question is how much longer he'll be a Philly, and there are a lot of Phillies who fall into that umbrella. Utley and Howard and Papelbon and Ruiz.
Well, they want the moon and the stars for him. Most teams just want to give him the moon so far.
That's the problem. If you overprice your own players, it's hard to make a trade. Here's Mayberry, who spent 5.5 years as a Philly. He's grounded out and struck out tonight. Mayberry now 0 for his last 14 and 3 for 24 to start the season. Brought to the Mets to be a specialist against left-handed pitching, but it hasn't gone that way yet. He pops this one up. Ryan Howard into foul territory, should have plenty of room, and that retires the side. So Hamels, after being re-handed the lead, sets the Mets down 1-2-3. Halfway through, it's 2-1. Rockies will have on the season, plus what Darrelle Revis learned playing with the Patriots that he's bringing to the Jets on an all-new Jets Nation Sunday at 7, only on SNY. We learn how to reinflate the footballs when they're on defense.
That's right.
Here's Carlos Ruiz leading off the home fifth.
Any news from that?
Curve for a strike.
Any news today on that?
You mean like does the Golden Boy get suspended?
It's got to go down.
Murphy over for a look, but that's back in the crowd. Nothing to do. How can they not?
Yeah, they have to. They have to. And there's a couple of things working here. They have to because of what has happened, and to me it seems obvious that he lied about it. And then second, I think the last year and a half has not been a shining light for the NFL, and they're trying to figure out how to make sure they discipline their players.
Dumped into right field, a base hit for Ruiz on an 0-2 pitch. Fourth hit against Harvey.
Two great pitchers, different ways of going about it. Look at the slope of their shoulders. Harvey on the left, he gets his speed from almost getting that shoulder straight across, reaching back to second base, and just the opposite for Cole Hamels. See how that elbow kind of comes out crooked and kind of leans back. He gets his power from leaning back and then firing forward.
Ruiz running on the pitch. The bunt is fair, and Hamels is out, and Ruiz is safe at second base. Hamels was walking away thinking the ball was fouled. Ruiz had run on the pitch, and so it winds up being a sacrifice for Hamels, 2 unassisted.
What do you say if you're the manager there? Outstanding bunt, Colt. I mean, he had no idea where he bunted it. He bunted it straight off the plate. Give credit to Plawecki for being quick and jumping on top of it and not taking it for granted. And for the Phillies of being, dare I say it, a little lucky that it worked.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here. Wouldn't Plawecki have been better off letting that ball bounce, see if it would go foul?
That's an interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's hard.
I like an out. I like an out.
He probably didn't realize when he went after the ball that Hamels had not run.
And he probably didn't realize that Ruiz was on the run, right? Maybe he thought he was going to have a play at second base.
Revere has been up twice, flied out both times. And that one skips into Plawecki, who stops it very nicely.
The lateral movement, we talked about Ruiz struggling. For a youngster, getting over there and just throwing everything. Your hip, your side, your right hand. He literally caught that against his forearm to keep it in play.
And the home plate umpire, Scott Barry, giving him a moment after he took that ball off his right arm.
Here's the bunt. Plawecki can't be. He can see that maybe Ruiz is going, but I don't think he can assume that he's not going to have a play at second. He looked at second and then realized that the whole play is called safe. I mean, called in play.
Lined over short, a base hit for Revere. Ruiz will come on in with the third Philadelphia run. Then Revere with an RBI single makes it 3-1 Philadelphia.
Well, while I was talking too long, Revere with a beautiful short stroke. And the Phillies, Terry Collins was addressing it today. People just assume that the Mets are going to come in here and win 3 straight. It doesn't work like that when you play a major league team. At any point, someone could come up with some big hits. Big one there by Revere.
Now Freddie Galvis has been aboard twice with a single and a walk. He's stolen 2 bases and scored a run. And it's been...
He's produced 884 hits last year, which tied him with his former teammate Denard Span. Short and to the spot.
Well, Harvey tried a little harder to keep the runners close. The Phillies have been taking significant liberties against Harvey tonight.
The one thing that Harvey does do now early in his career, and it's hard to criticize him over everything, but he's kind of a 1-2-3 go to the plate guy, 1-2-3 throw to first guy. Very rarely does he hold the ball long enough.
And Galvis has another base hit. Revere pulls it at second. Well, Galvis has been able to turn on that fastball a couple of times tonight. He's now 2 for 2 and a walk.
Well, you said, Gary, coming in that he's been on top of his game. He's been one of the shining beacons for this Phillies team, and we can see why tonight. Short stroke, just like Revere. Very impressive by Galvis.
So 3 hits in the inning for the Phillies. 6 for the night against Harvey. And now Chase Utley is flied out and struck out. Now 0 for his last 17.
How many times have we watched this Met team start an inning like this and Utley and Howard come up and you say to yourself, kind of privately, uh-oh, here it comes.
Well, Howard has had a good night tonight. Utley has not. Harvey starts off with a knee-high fastball on the outside corner.
You know, the one thing that Jesse Utley and Howard have had so much success here that Matt brings anywhere he goes is a huge bullseye. Guys read about it. They come into the game wanting to put the Harvey notch on their belt.
Plawecki got a piece of it. They got the runner trapped off first, but he didn't realize it till too late. Galvis took off from first thinking Revere was going to try to move up, and he got halfway to second and took a beat until Plawecki realized it, and then it was too late.
Well, Galvis read this right, but there's nothing that Revere could have done. You know why? Because when Plawecki blocked that ball, he blocked it to his left. If he's blocking it to his left, that's toward third base. So, yeah, a good read for Galvis to go, but not a good reason for Revere to go. See where that ball is? Revere would read that as can't go to third base.
Utley lifts one to right. Granderson right there. And the runners hold, 2 out. So Utley is 0 for 3. Now Ryan Howard, who's driven in 2 runs tonight with a single and his 6th home run of the season.
Was a pitch that Utley got, and in the past he wouldn't have missed, and he missed it.
Let's put the shift on. Murphy will go into shallow right field. And we're in a similar situation in the first inning with Galvis at second base. He took off for third and wound up scoring when Howard hit a ground ball that Murphy was able to knock down but couldn't make a play on.
And that ball was right at the second base position, the one used in the 1920s to 2001, whatever.
Well, let's see if the Phillies run again with Howard at the plate after he hit a home run his last time up. Revere at second, Galvis at first, and Howard takes a strike. Howard now has 8 hits in his last 14 at bats. So this is the hottest streak he's had so far this year. Darren Ruff would be next. Big spot here for Harvey. Already down by 2 runs. Hamels pitching well. Can't afford to give up much more. And he runs one inside. Ball on the string. This is the 42nd career start for Matt Harvey, and in only half of those starts now has he given up more than 1 run. That's just amazing.
Crazy.
This tells you what the expectations have become. This is with a slider, and it's 2-1. 21 of 41 starts coming into tonight, 1 run or less. No pitcher in the last 100 years had done that in their first 41 starts.
And we say that, and he just does not throw the ball free and easy tonight. It just seems like he's had to work every inning.
Pulled foul. What it does, though, is it raises the bar, and you expect that every time he goes out there, he's going to be close to perfect.
Well, one of the reporters asked after the sweep, 2-game sweep of the Orioles, said it's got to make you feel good, Terry. You know, Matt Harvey's pitching on Friday. That gives you 3 straight, and you can get on a roll. Terry's like, what are you talking about? I didn't even think about that. I didn't even know Matt Harvey was pitching on Friday. I mean, people assume that he's going to win every game he pitches.
2 out, 2 on, 2 and 2 to Howard. They run, and Howard goes down on the high fastball to end the inning. 4th strikeout for Harvey, but the Phillies add a run on Ben Revere's RBI hit. Harvey retires Howard for the first time. It's 3-1 Phils after 5. Sixth inning, Michael Kadire leads off and takes a big hack and gets a tiny sliver of a changeup. It's 0-1.
Usually you check the end of your bat to make sure you didn't take a sliver off the end of the bat.
Hamels now with a 2-run lead. And the curveball has Kadire wailing, and it's 0-2. If you look at your People's United Bank starting pitchers, and Hamels has had the best of Harvey so far tonight. That's got their only run of the fourth. Kadire led off with a hit, scored on a wild pitch, and he strikes out on 3 pitches and doesn't even make an attempt to go to first base. That's the first out. 8 strikeouts now for Hamels. We check in with the studio. CJ Papa has a game break brought to you by Honda. Jason Worth has his first home run of the year in that game for the Nats as Murphy pounds one foul.
Well, I think we all thought going to the season that this was going to be Harper's breakout year. When you talk to the people Washington, playing controlled in the outfield, playing controlled on the base paths, and starting to get hot now.
And controlled at the plate too. I mean, all the walks this year, a lower chase rate than in the past. He's just growing up.
He's maturing. I mean, he's 22 years old.
Hamels drilled Murphy with a pitch back in the second inning. He flied out in the fourth. And Murph gets tied in a knot. It's 1-2-2. Tonight's Cold Hard Facts brought to you by Clean Crisp Coors Light. Cole Hamels had gotten 10 runs of support in 6 starts this year. So 3 runs tonight feels like a huge cushion. By far the worst run support in the National League for the team that scores the fewest runs of any team in the league. Murphy turns away from the curveball, and it's 3-2.
And it's a fine line because, you know, as a pitcher, you can't say anything. You know what I mean? You just have to take it.
Unless you're Odalis Perez.
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
that?
That's right.
With the Dodgers. He aired out his hitters in the clubhouse. Boy, was he a popular guy. Murphy lifts one to left center. Herrera over in the gap. And there are 2 away.
Someone told me once, which really helped me, said no offense. Your teammates never go into one game thinking, you know what? I don't want to score for this guy. They never think that. They always want to get hits and score a lot of runs. It just sometimes you end up being that guy every 5th day.
Well, if you're on a bad offensive team, everybody has a chance to be that guy. Popped straight up. Who's going to call? Howard's going to take charge. And that retires the side. 7 in a row retired by Hamels. Middle of the 6th in Philly. That's down 3-1. Sandberg, and what other player to the Cubs?
I think I have this one.
I know who came back the other way.
Yes, but I know. Well, that other team had to have someone replace the guy who came over here, right?
Oh, I know who it was.
Okay. Did that help? That helped, right?
And he wound up being a Met at one point, too, didn't he?
Yes.
Hansel Robles up in the Mets bullpen as Matt Harvey works into the 6th inning. And he falls behind on Darren Ruff 2-0. Ruff, Odubel Herrera, and Cody Ashe. Ivan DeJesus was the player who came to the Phillies for Sandberg and this other guy.
That's right.
He was a shortstop.
Ivan, who had probably the most muscular middle infielder you ever saw in your life.
Flores right in front of that grounder and throws out Ruff one away. Of course, Dallas Green had been with the Phillies, went to Chicago, knew the Phillies farm system well, and knew that Sandberg was a worthwhile target.
That's right. Sandberg, when he first came up, they thought he was going to be a shortstop, right?
On to being a Gold Glove second baseman.
Shortstop or third baseman? I'm not sure. So it couldn't have been a third baseman with Michael Jack.
Or maybe that's why he got moved.
Yeah.
1 out and nobody on now. Odubel Herrera, and he flies one into shallow left. On comes Mayberry, and there are 2 out.
Eddie, our stat guy here, who's just outstanding, said that was the reason he was blocked at third base by Michael Jack. So that's why Mr. Sandberg was expendable and just became a Hall of Fame second baseman.
Dave Freed wouldn't have gotten you the answer that fast.
Dave Freed.
Here's Ryne Sandberg's credentials. MVP in '84, 9 Gold Gloves, 10 All-Star appearances, Hall of Fame. Well, Matt Harvey's only had 1-1-2-3 inning tonight. That came back in the 2nd.
Interesting that here we are in the 6th inning, and Harvey looks a little more in control of that fastball than he did earlier in the game. I wonder, is it because he's been out there a while, or he's got a little anger working because he's losing by 2 runs here? But have you noticed the fastball command just is not what we're used to seeing? We're used to seeing him pumping in that fastball strike after strike. He gets behind a lot. When he gets behind, he's gone to that changeup, that curveball, which when he's at his best is remarkable.
He's only struck out 4 tonight, and he only struck out 3 in his last start, and that's not what you anticipate when Matt takes the mound. Ashe lifts one to right center. Didn't quite get all of it, and Granderson back in front of the warning track to grab it, and that retires the side. That could be it for Harvey. He's due a turn at bat in the 7th. Mets down 3-1 in Philadelphia. 10. And the first 15,000 fans will receive a Mets fedora courtesy of Select Spider. For tickets, visit Mets.com/fedora. Love how our director gets the hats into the shot every time we talk about the fedora. Kevin Plawecki drills one foul.
It's called Weekends with Danny Barr. That's what we call it.
The double hat look. That's a neutral fan.
First base umpire Teddy Barrett is hoping he gets that call that he's doing Citi Field, because he wears a fedora everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Out to right center, and Herrera calls off Revere. 1 out. That's 8 in a row retired by Hamels, since the Mets got their only run in the 4th, and Hamels and Ruiz had some hard times. They have gotten back on the same page, and Hamels, looking for his 2nd win of the year, out pitching Harvey tonight.
Since they were so predictable, they've been unpredictable since then. With the one sign.
Dilson Herrera, the batter, he's doubled and drawn an intentional walk. And he swings over the changeup, 0-1. Anthony Recker has come out on deck to pinch hit, so it looks like Matt Harvey's night is done. Matt threw just 86 pitches in 6 innings, but the Mets down by 2. And Hamels stays soft with Herrera, 0-2.
The youngster's going to get a steady diet of breaking pitches now through the first time he's in the major leagues again. They want to see if he can hit a breaking ball. Every youngster gets tested that way.
Fly out to right, and Revere right there for the 2nd out. 9 in a row for Hamels.
Well, Hamels is tall and skinny, but he's got a beautiful motion. Very economical. Hands over his head, which is very rarely used these days, and a high leg kick. That's how he hides the baseball. And we talked about that tilt before. He tilts back and then vertically gets on that front foot, and that's where he gets that velocity. Pretty repeatable, isn't it? It's nice to see. Nice to watch.
So Matt Harvey's done after 6 innings. He'll pitch on regular rest his next start in Chicago. The Mets are carrying 3 catchers now with Johnny Manel around, so that frees up Recker to pinch hit. Recker just 1 for 12 this season. And you see Matt's line. So we talked about it during his start when things were going pretty well for Matt, and it was certainly an uneven outing for him. So how much of that in retrospect can you attribute to him pitching on a full week's rest?
Well, I think that we've got to get used to it, not only up here in the booth, but if you're a Mets fan, that's kind of how it's got to work, because innings wise and starts wise.
Recker drills one into right for a base hit, his first ever hit against Hamels.
They want to keep him at a certain level in case your Mets are able to play postseason baseball. Good hitting by Recker here, going the other way. Very nice. Short, compact. It's hard to do to come off the bench.
So then the question becomes, how does Matt adjust to the reality of having extra rest often?
That's the question, and I think that's the difficulty, and I'd be very surprised in his next start if he's not on top of his game with regular rest, Gary.
There's Granderson tying run at the plate in a 3-1 game. Granderson's had a rough time against Hamels tonight.
His breaking pitches have been good. His changeup has been good. It's just fastball command to me. That's all it is. That's what separates him from all others. When you think of all the great pitchers, let's try to think of the ones in the last generation, whether it's Clemens or Maddox or Pedro. But let's more Pedro and Clemens. Think of guys who just had unbelievable stuff. Okay, take away all the other stuff. They had control. That was their thing, is that they not only had the great stuff, but they had the control too.
Line drive by Granderson right into the mid of Howard, and that ends the inning. 7 strong innings for Hamels. Stretch time in Philly. Mets down 3-1.
Howie, surely you must jest. But SNY is looking for teams with 2 fans to compete against the best. Think you have what it takes to outsmart the brains of the booth and win $5,000? Then come to Citi Field for SNY's open audition for Beat the Booth, presented by Citi. Saturday, May 16th, starting at 9 a.m. That music is classic. I felt like Wink Martindale reading that thing.
Now, it's been 9 days since Hansel Robles got into a game.
You know, it was interesting before the game today. Josh Lewin, a talented radio guy for the Mets, was asking about those guys in the pen, that when you have good pitching by your starting pitchers, they just waste away down there because there's no time to get them in a game. Well, today's the day.
Carlos Ruiz leads off against Robles in the home 7. Ken Giles getting ready in the Phillies bullpen. Grady Sizemore on deck to bat for Hamels, so it looks like he's done after 7 very strong innings. And the slider in for a strike to Ruiz. 1-1. Ruiz had an opposite field single, scored a run in the 5th inning. That's got their only run in the 4th, but then Ryan Howard led off the bottom of the 4th with a homer, and the Phillies have been in front ever since. Granderson coming on, and Ruiz retired, 1 out in the home 7.
Hansel Robles is interesting to watch because I call him slingers. He's the kind of guy that just has a beautiful arm action and long arm action, not those guys that bring it straight to their ear, and that's why he gets so much movement on his fastball, usually jamming right-handed hitters and getting left-handed hitters to hit it off the end of the bat.
Grady Sizemore will be the pinch hitter, hitting just .208, but 2 for 6 as a pinch hitter. There's that 95-mile-an-hour fastball, 0-1.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. Robles was a starting pitcher most of his career, and
they moved to the bullpen middle of last year.
Yeah, and he was good as a starting pitcher, but not great.
Right. And he really thrived once they put him in the pen. And you see that a lot, especially with guys, you know, who don't have great secondary pitches.
When I watch Robles pitch, you can just tell that he's a guy that wants to throw the ball hard. His fastball and his slider. Well, they work nice out of the bullpen. The ability to change speeds is what separates you as a starter.
Third big league appearance for Robles, who made his major league debut at Yankee Stadium. So by my count, he still hasn't pitched in a home game, has he? Sizemore pops one up into shallow center. So 2 lazy fly balls induced by Robles, and he has the first 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. The horses are on the track.
I mean, how can that get me every single time? It's funny every single time. You and I are both like our ponies, so it's always fun to hear that sound.
Preakness a week from tomorrow.
I've always just want to run out of the booth and get my bet down.
Here's Ben Revere, who drove in the 3rd Phillies run with an opposite field single in the 5th. So Matt Harvey went 6, allowed 3 runs, 6 hits, a walk, 4 strikeouts, just 86 pitches. His ERA goes up to 2.72, and he will not be the 4th Met pitcher to win his first 6 starts in a season. 1988, Dwight Gooden. 1990, Frank Viola. And the one that comes with an asterisk, 1968, Dick Selma began the year in the bullpen, so he had several outings before his first start, but they put him in the starting rotation in May, and he won his first 6 starts that year.
Pulled a Terry Leach.
Fanatic does not remember that, or would like not to remember.
Oh, he doesn't care. He probably remembers everything, but he's the pro Philly, anti everyone else.
That's okay.
Yeah,
he's green.
He's great. It's a little smelly, but other than that, he is fantastic.
I think he's smelly now. Wait till the middle of the summer. 1-2, and Revere trying to get out of the way, and it went off the bat.
You know how you always see these advertisements and coaches working with their hitters to stay inside the baseball, to keep your hands in the zone till the very last minute? Well, you know what ends up happening? Guys are getting hit in the hands a lot.
Just ask Travis d'Arnaud.
That's right.
3 fly ball outs for Robles, and the Phillies are out 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 7th. Pats, Genos, it's an eternal question. Let's answer our Verizon trivia question. We asked, who did the Phillies include with Ryne Sandberg in their trade to the Cubs for Ivan DeJesus? And it was Larry Bowa, at one time a Met.
I will tell you, Larry Bowa, when I played against him, I couldn't stand him. Ken Giles, you can see his numbers. He is the future. Walks have been a problem, but he's the future of this club. This kid can throw darts.
Lagares hits one toward the middle. Galvis flashes over and makes it look easy for the first out. So 1 out and nobody on, and now Kirk Neuenhuis is going to bat for John Mayberry with a right-hander in the game.
Let me finish my thought on Bo. So I couldn't stand him facing him because he'd throw a pitch off the plate, he'd dunk it over the center, the shortstop's head, whatever. Then he came to the Mets, and I was like, you get it. You're like one of the nicest guys ever. And then after that, I've gotten to know him much better. And Bo is just a remarkable guy and a great baseball guy with a great baseball mind.
Now the bench coach for Ryne Sandberg with these Phillies. Neuenhuis takes a fastball out of the strike zone at 98 miles an hour. Bowa had managerial stints in San Diego and here with the Phillies.
One of those great players from the Sacramento, California region.
You know what Bo's biggest problem as a manager was? You know how the camera is always pointed at the manager? He couldn't restrain himself.
Really? Like
he couldn't keep the stoic poker face. Anytime one of his players did anything,
he was like, oh
exactly. There's a lot of that. Some guys love playing for him, and some, were a little off the fence. For this era of player, he was tough. 2-2 to Neuenhuis.
He didn't suffer fools gladly, did he?
Still doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Sean Gilmartin on his 25th birthday, getting ready in the Mets bullpen. Happy birthday, Sean. 2-2 to Nieuwenhuis, and Giles misses up and away at 99. Giles last year 45 innings, 11 walks. This year 12 innings, already 8 walks. So it's gone very differently for him with his control. And the Mets hoping that presents itself here. 3-2 to Nieuwenhuis with Kadire on deck, and Nieuwenhuis goes down swinging for the second out.
You know, all of the talk today, of course, has been about Dylan G going on the DL and Noah Syndergaard coming up, and all well and good. But the Mets offense at some point, you know, last 13 games now, if you include this one, haven't scored more than 1 run 4 times out of those 13. So that's got to change.
Well, they've been getting great starting pitching every day. They lost a couple of 1-0 games over the weekend. Bounced back to sweep the Orioles. Scored 8 runs total in those 2 games. 1-1 to Kadire, who scored the only run for the Mets tonight. There's your city probables. Jonathan East goes tomorrow night against Aaron Harang, who's been great early in the year for the Phils, same way as he was for the Braves last year. And then Bartolo Colon moves up to pitch Sunday against Chad Billingsley, just his second start back after 2 years on the sideline. Big hop for Ashe, throws out Kadire, and Giles throws a 1-2-3 top of the 8th. We go to the bottom of the 8th, 3-1 Phillies. Cole Hamels 7 strong innings. Matt Harvey not quite as sharp for his 6. Kurt Nieuwenhuis stays in the play left field, and on his 25th birthday, Sean Gilmartin.
Well, you see his numbers so far pretty good. His last game was on Sunday. He came in and essentially walked hitter and then got an out, but not a lot of work for Mr. Gilmartin so far.
Freddie Galvis will turn around to bat right-handed. Galvis 2 for 2 in a walk tonight, 2 steals and a run scored. He's been right in the middle of everything. He's hitting over 500 as a right-hand batter this year, 9 for 17. So Galvis's terrific start continues. He's hitting .344 now, not quite up to the standards of D. Gordon.
That's right. Whoa.
D. Gordon had 3 more hits last night. Coming into tonight, 52 hits in 28 games. That's the most in the first 28 games for anybody since Rod Carew 32 years ago.
Wow.
But think about it, to have over 50 hits on May 8th. Flores to his left, and Galvis has another hit. And we just saw Galvis make what looked like an easy play on a ground ball in that same spot, and that'll show you the difference in range.
Oh, it's the exact same play. So, you know, a little topspin on this ball. You know, the interesting thing about Wilmer, unlike most shortstops, he plays about 4 or 5 steps on the infield dirt. Most shortstops play with their heels against the grass.
So do you think that's an adjustment that he should make?
I think that because of his range, they're trying to stop that ball that's not hit so well. I think just the opposite. Even though he hasn't thrown the ball well, he's got a strong enough arm to use it. Play a little deeper.
Galvis has already stolen 2 bases tonight, but now you got the lefty Gilmartin on the mound. And Utley fooled by the breaking ball, 0-1. Utley now 0 for his last 18 tonight, 2 fly balls and a strikeout. Double play ball right at Herrera. He bobbles it, but they're still able to turn 2. 4-6-3 on the double play, 2 out.
Interesting, some boos here from the Philly crowd directed towards Chase Utley. Nice play by Dilson Herrera. He didn't panic. That's the key for any young infielder. You're not going to always catch it smoothly. Comes up a little bit, he doesn't panic, keeps it in his glove, little backhanded toss, and Flores makes up for it with the strong throw. Looked that right into the glove and didn't panic. Nice to see.
So 2 out and nobody on. And now Ryan Howard has had a big night, a single and a home run. He's driven in 2 of the 3 Philly runs. Speaking of home runs, Bryce Harper hit his 2nd of the night.
What?
He now has 5 of the last 2 games. 10 for the year, 22 years old.
And the Mets made him look bad in the series they played against him, and now he's on time. They're lucky they're not facing him.
Nats are up 7-2 on the Braves in the 8th. There you see the home run leaders over the last 10 years. Howard 3rd in that group, presented by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Enter promo code NYM for free entry.
I always find the most interesting thing about Ryan Howard is that wasted is the wrong word, but he was in the minor leagues for probably 2 or 3 seasons too long because Jim Thome was playing first base here and he was kind of held back.
Didn't come up till he was 26. Of course, he was a college guy. He went to Southwest Missouri State and what's now Missouri State. They dropped the directional.
How do you get there?
Well, then I have GPS.
Okay. If he can work it.
2-2 from Gilmartin. And Howard lays off the slider in the dirt. 3-2. Sean Gilmartin out of Florida State. Rule 5 pick by the Mets from the Twins organization. And so far the Mets happy to be keeping him, as they need to all year to retain him. He walks Howard with 2 out. So the Phillies have a base runner and Darren Ruff coming up. And Terry Collins on his way out toward the mound. Jonathan Papelbon getting ready in the Phillies bullpen. So right-hand hitter coming up. Gilmartin issuing the 2-out walk to Howard. And Terry's going to bring in the right-hander to face Ruff. Call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon. Eric Goodell on his way in. We'll be right back to Philadelphia. Series Sunday afternoon. Bartolo Colon trying for his 6th win against Chad Billingsley. Our coverage begins at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon right here on SNY. We'll be on Pix 11 tomorrow night. Andres Blanco, pinch runner for Ryan Howard, to face Eric Goodell. Will be Darren Ruff.
Well, really the 3 pitchers, when you think about that, haven't gotten enough work, Robles, Gilmartin, and Goodell, all 3 of them get in this ball game.
That's a check mark.
Yeah, right.
Goodell last pitched on Sunday, 2/3 of an inning against the Nats. Comes in to face Ruff, who's 0 for 3 tonight, 3 ground balls, and he fires one up and in. In the 9th inning, the Mets will have Murphy, Flores, and Plawecki due up against Jonathan Papelbon. And keep in mind, looming in the Mets dugout as a prospective pinch hitter is Lucas Duda. So if the Mets get anybody on as Goodell bounces that pickoff throw, then they've got that big threat sitting on the bench.
Yeah, it's quite a weapon to have.
The other guy the Mets have sitting on the bench is Johnny Manel, who's yet to get in a game for the Mets.
He's got some pop too.
He does. We saw that in spring training. He was really tearing it up in Vegas before the Mets called him up. The idea was that he would be the 3rd catcher, but be mostly a left-handed bat off the bench. Tonight, his presence allowed Terry Collins to use Recker as a pinch hitter against Hamels, and Recker got a base hit. Work done for the night.
Maybe not. We'll end up at the bullpen at some point if the Mets can tie this game.
It's that good splitter by Goodell. It's 2-2.
I've been more impressed by Goodell this year than I was last year. I wasn't sure if he had enough pitches to get big league hitters out, but his curveball is excellent.
2-2. Struck him out. Went right back to the splitter to get Ruff. So Goodell comes in, gets a strikeout. Last call for the Mets in the 9th against Papelbon. They've beaten him before, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
field to first base. Ben Revere moves from right field to left field. Former Met Jeff Francoeur comes into play right field. He'll bat ninth. And the Phillies closer Jonathan Papelbon is on to try and finish off the Mets. Daniel Murphy will try and start it off for New York, and he takes a strike.
It'll be a little different Papelbon than you've seen in the past. He does not throw 95 plus as much anymore, but he's been just as effective. Good split finger, and you'll still see more sliders from Pap.
There's that splitter for a strike. And it's 0-2 to Murphy, who's 0 for 2 and been hit by a pitch. Got drilled in the leg by Hamels his first time up tonight. Wilmer Flores on deck, then Kevin Plawecki. And if I were to look into the Mets dugout, I would have to guess that somewhere Lucas Duda has a bat in his hand.
We got to get someone on.
There
That's
he
the
is.
key. There he is.
Helmet and bat, gloves, everything at the ready.
Johnny Winnell right behind him.
Murphy 3 for 8 against Papelbon, and he drills one into right field for a leadoff hit. Make it 4 for 9. And the Mets will get the tying run to bat. And do you go right to Duda here? I believe you do. Duda's going to come up and bat for Flores.
Take your shot while you can. Hanging slider there from Papelbon. Nice hitting by Murph. Balanced. Waits for the ball to travel. Beautiful swing by Murph.
So Terry Collins is going to go right to his ace in the hole. Bob McClure is going to take a trip to the mound to talk to Papelbon, but Lucas Duda is going to bat for Wilmer Flores, hoping that one swing can tie this game.
Do you find this interesting? A closer, a guy that has done it his entire career, needs to have instructions on how to face Lucas Duda? I mean, come on now.
Duda is 1 for 5 in his career against Papelbon. Well, the Mets have their opportunity, and the Met fans starting to make some noise here in Philadelphia.
The only thing I could see is that, and it won't happen. I mean, Murphy's just going to be stuck on first base because he wants to keep the hole open and wants Lucas to hit one out of the ballpark. Lucas had a few balls at Citi Field, and that last game against the Orioles, the last couple of games, that could have been home runs here to left field.
Just one hit in his last 15 at bats. Average is dipped below 300 for the year. And Lucas takes a rip. 0-1.
Good split finger from Pap. He knows hitters, when they come off the bench, they are aggressive and want to swing at that first pitch, so he counters with the off-speed pitch.
A strike. Murphy at first and nobody out. And Duda takes a fastball for a strike, and now it's 1-2. Might have been his pitch.
Yeah, he surprised him with that fastball. It was just away enough. Here's his career numbers against Papelbon. That split finger, though, ends up low and in the strike zone. That's Lucas's power.
One-two coming from Papelbon. And Duda fouls off the fastball. Lucas in his career as a pinch hitter, 10 for 44, 227 with 2 home runs. Last year, 30 home runs. This year, through the first month or so of the season, just 2. Again, the 1-2. Fastball got him looking. 1 out of the ninth.
Well, he started him off with the split finger, and after that, it was all fastballs from Papelbon. And this one right on the corner, framed by Ruiz.
So a huge out for Papelbon. And now it's Kevin Plawecki, who's 1 for 3 tonight. Extended his hitting streak to 7 games with an infield hit in the 4th. And Plawecki takes a slider for a strike. Coming up tonight after the post-game show, Doug Williams will have Geico Sports Night. Everything involving baseball, and of course the Rangers tonight trying to keep their season alive. Fastball away to Plawecki. A ball and a strike.
Papelbon wanted that pitch.
Well, Dilson Herrera waits on deck. Papelbon's been outspoken, talked about not really wanting to be here in Philadelphia. He creates chaos wherever he goes.
Sometimes the fireworks don't start till the game's ended for Papelbon.
He's got a clause in his contract this year where a contract option kicks in if he closes a certain number of games. Phillies would love to trade him, but they may be asking for too much. That's certainly the case with a lot of potential deals for the Phils. But for now, Papelbon is here and trying to close out a Phillies win. Plawecki down in the count 1-2. And he takes a rip at a fastball and fouls back another one.
Good rip by Plawecki. You know, you're talking about the shenanigans of Papelbon. Trying to come inside, left it out over the plate. Missed by Plawecki. It doesn't shroud his amazing career.
Slider, and Plawecki does a good job laying off. 2-2.
Boy, that was a good pitch by Papelbon. A better job of Plawecki at not swinging at that pitch.
Papelbon bidding for career save number 331. Plawecki pulls one foul. Slider in the middle of the plate. Now Plawecki giving an awfully good accounting of himself in this at bat. He's fouled back a couple of fastballs, laid off a slider out of the strike zone.
Pap with that stare in. Sets that glove in his hand on his right hip.
Seventh pitch of the at bat to Plawecki, and he goes down swinging at that splitter away. Back-to-back strikeouts for Papelbon, and now there are two out.
Well, almost unfair there. What he did is he showed Plawecki his fastball, and he showed him the slider, and he saved that split finger for the end. A pitch that Plawecki had not seen.
So the Mets are down to their final out. Dilson Herrera, who has swung the bat extremely well the last few days, tonight has doubled, been intentionally walked and flied out. 4 hits in his last 5 at bats. Trying to keep the Mets alive. Murphy at first and 2 out. And Herrera swings at the slider, 0-1.
Well, the split finger grip by Papelbon on both sides of the seams. You throw it as hard as you can, and that ball just tumbles to the plate.
And now Papelbon has the Mets down to their final strike. Oh, to Herrera. And he lays off the slider. 1-2.
Well, in a similar circumstance, what did he do to the young Plawecki? Fastballs and sliders, when they did not bite, he came back with a split finger. Let's see if he does it to Herrera.
1-2. He does, but he lays off, and Ruiz knocks it down. 2-2.
And
if Herrera can keep it going, Johnny Manel has come out on deck to pinch hit.
Papelbon just called Ruiz out. They really want to discuss. They don't want to get this to 3-2 and have Murphy running. Want to discuss this and get it on the same page. You want to, with the split finger, give an illusion that it's a ball that's going to be in the strike zone as it tumbles out. That one tumbled right from the beginning when it only went 55 feet.
2-2 to Herrera. Off the plate with a slider, and now it's a full count. So Herrera's worked it from 0-2 to 3-2. Some teams have not respected Herrera because of his size. They're all playing deep now. No double situation for the Phillies. Murphy will run. Papelbon's 3-2. In the air to left field. Revere is there. And the Phillies take the opener of the series. Cole Hamels outduels Matt Harvey. And the Phillies beat the Mets for the first time in 4 tries this year, as Hamels' 7 strong innings helped the Phils to a 3-1 win.
Well, I said it earlier, the 32nd start by Cole Hamels. He's only 9-14 against these Mets, but his last 5 starts, he has not given up more than 1 run. Papelbon with his 112th save as a Philly, and the Mets are still shaking their heads wondering, when is the offense going to come back?
So the Mets, who have been so strong at home, fall to 5-8 on the road as they lose the opener of this 7-game road trip. Ryan Howard with a home run drove in 2 of the 3 Philadelphia runs. Your Jeep game summary: Matt Harvey loses for the first time this season. He won his first 5 starts of the year, but not tonight, as Hamels was better. Struck out 9 over 7 innings, and the Phillies win it 3-1. Friday Night Baseball on SNY is brought to you by Jeep. Visit Jeep.com today. Jonathan Papelbon puts on the finishing touches. Phillies beat the Mets 3-1. More from Citizens Bank Park coming right up.